Radioscope, the National Science Magazine program.
Welcome, dear listeners, to another insightful edition of Radioscope. Today, we celebrate the brilliance of science and technology, which continues to unravel the mysteries of our world, shaping innovations and improving lives. Science not only deepens our understanding of nature, but also plays a vital role in conserving our ecosystems, protecting mental health, and exploring the final frontier, space. I am your host, Jayashree.
And I am Chetan. As we step into October, Radioscope Akashvani National Science Magazine honors the legacy of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, India's missile man and former President of India. In this episode, we have a wonderful lineup of discussions and interviews. We'll explore the intersection of the World Day for Audiovisual Heritage, preserving our cultural legacy and wildlife photography with Sri G. Ramakrishna Reddy. Next, in observance of Mental Health Day, we'll delve into the significance of mental well-being in a discussion with Dr. Madhusudan Joshi and Dr. Raghavendra Kashikar, followed by an enlightening interview with psychologist Dr. Radha Chintala.
And our focus then shifts back to wildlife, where we will discuss conservation efforts in the Western Ghats, one of India's most critical biodiversity hotspots, with Sri D.V. Girish and Sri Sridev Hulikere. Finally, we mark World Space Week with a special interview with Dr. Vinod Kumar, Director of Promotion in Space ISRO, who will guide us through the latest advancements in space exploration.
Srimati Seema Kumari, Program Executive, joins us in our Radioscope as she interacts with our esteemed expert. Let's dive into the first segment as we explore how photography can serve as a powerful tool in preserving our wildlife. Over to Sri G. Ramakrishna Reddy.
As an amateur photographer, I prefer to go for the low budget camera, that is a small frame camera and with a telephoto lens.
Okay.
So the telephoto lens is very important for wildlife photography, as wildlife photography needs to be done in an environment without disturbing the subject which we shoot, without disturbing the natural environment. Wildlife creatures like birds, made birds or anything. So once we have a telephoto lens, we'll be able to zoom and get what's actually going on there from a long distance without disturbing their natural habitat. For example, the birds may be feeding their chicks. So if we go very close, the birds may get scared and may stop feeding the chicks. So if we are at a distance, we'll be able to capture those moments without disturbing their natural habitat. So a telephoto lens, a camera and a tripod to stabilize the camera, and your gear to spot the things like a binoculars, and yourself from getting protected from rain. These things are very important for a wildlife photographer.
What kind of photography techniques do you frequently employ for taking photographs?
So first thing, I do a lot of bird photography, for which we need to reach the site much before the sunrise.
Yeah.
So we need to initially identify the places where the birds stay and what are the kind of birds, what is their diurnal rhythm, when do they come back to their nest, identify that place, and without disturbing them we need to reach the place before sunrise and then set up a place where we can be camouflaged. The birds should never identify you. Once they identify you, they are very fleety, they don't come near to you. Then we set up the right angles, the sunlight from where it is coming, which side is east and which side is west, and we have the morning golden hour as the best time to take photographs. That is from the sunrise for about 1.5 hours and around 1.5 hours before sunset. So based on the location of the wildlife, maybe a bird, and also from where the sun is coming. The sun always needs to be behind you. So we need to set up that gear and take the proper angle. So for that we need to observe the bird for a few days before, how it's coming, from which direction does it come, where does it sit initially, then where does it move. So understanding the behavior of these birds is very important for us to set up the camera gear and then go on with good photography.
What is this Shirin Yoku?
Shirin Yoku, actually in our tradition, time of the year, like some months of the year, we have a tradition of going and cooking in the forest and living in the forest, staying in the forest for some time. Right now, because the forests are disintegrating, they identify a tree or a water body, they go away from their home, cook there, and then come back. So this particular thing has been there from quite some years. This is called as forest bathing. So forest bathing or Shirin Yoku is a concept which was there with India from quite some time. So this particular thing has been rediscovered in Japan by a doctor. He's a medical doctor. He found out that by living in the forest close to nature, in wildlife, you are going to get some benefits. Initially he didn't understand. Every time he went into the forest, his knee pains or body pains were much more gone and he used to come back relaxed. He thought that it was because he was seeing the green nature and he was relaxed. It was because of that. But then he thought, why not I go a little more deeper and see whether they really have some effect or it's my psychological understanding, psychological
effect.
Feeling, effect.
Ji.
Then he went to investigate and he got his cortisol levels done. His cortisol levels reduced by half once he went into the forest and came back. And his blood pressure had dropped down drastically. He was a hypertensive, his blood pressure dropped down drastically. Then he started investigating more into the chemistry of what happens to a person when you go into the forest. Then now slowly the research is leading towards one terminology called as phytonicides. Phytonicides are chemicals secreted by a tree to protect itself from fungus, bacteria or some other things. These phytonicides indirectly, when a person comes in contact with them, are going to create some immune modulating systems within you, like natural killer cells, things like that, which are going to reduce the inflammation in your body and also heal some of the cancers because of the natural killer cells being produced. Like in previous days, they used to say, you sleep under a neem tree, your diseases disappear.
Yeah.
We thought it was just a saying of the old.
That was very much sayings in our villages.
But now it is coming true and there's a lot of scientific evidence to prove that living in wildlife, living with forests, they are going to help you to recover from your illness, improve your longevity, improve your mental, social, physical, psychological behavior of you.
Up next, dear listeners, we turn our attention to a topic of utmost importance, mental health. As we observe Mental Health Day, it is a reminder that taking care of our mind is just as essential as caring for our body. Mental well-being affects every aspect of our lives, from our relationships to our productivity and overall happiness.
In this segment, we'll be joined by two eminent experts, Dr. Madhusudan Joshi and Dr. Raghavendra Kashikar, who will engage in a thought-provoking discussion on the importance of mental health, the challenges people face, and the need to break the stigma surrounding mental health issues. Let's listen in as they shed light on how we can better understand and support mental wellness.
Mental health was very important to make people aware that this is also a condition which can be identified and rectified like any other bodily illness.
Madhusudanji has analyzed and exposed about the term that is called mental health. What is your say, Raghavendraji?
Mental health disorders, problems in behaviors, thought and mood. So that's why we call them mental health disorders. It's not a general term that goes in, but we should identify what type of thought he has, what mood swings, or what type of, whether it is persistent or whether these thoughts are persistent and continuing with his behaviors. Identifying those things, and there are types. We have to see, sometimes they themselves identify, and some disorders where others identify these disorders.
Yeah, while observing their behavior.
That's very important.
There is very great link between this neuroscience and biology. So how do neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine impact mental health?
Now that we have come to the computer age, it has become more easier to understand how brain and neuroscience is equally important. Because like in your computer and laptop, what happens when the virus enters? Suddenly your computer goes off and you think, is there anything wrong in that? Then you put a Norton antivirus or antivirus program, scan it, and the same computer starts behaving properly. So then people should understood that probably our brain also is like a computer. Our brain is like a hard disk of the computer, which has got various areas marked. One for memory, one for hearing, one for seeing, one for motor activity.
Yeah.
So all these things, and then that can be modulated by some technique. So that technique is the neurotransmitter system, neural system, that modifies the whole thing. That is how it is. The brain and neurosystem is the hardware of our body, neurological mechanism. And our software, or what we see, is like the monitor of the computer. When monitor doesn't show, you ask a question and it shows some different answer.
What is exactly CBT and how it works on different patients?
Because defective cognitions are very important to understand. Because in depressive patients, we have to identify types of defective cognitions, whatever have, like in OCD and depression, what type of cognition and how the cognition is going on, what is that defect he has. Like for example, I'll not do hopelessness, worthlessness. These are defective cognitions that will create a suicidal feeling. So why worthlessness, why hopelessness? We have to identify how and that has created, and that should be corrected.
Cognitive behavior therapy, what are you doing? You are trying to find out whether he is perceiving things improperly. First you identify those areas, just like in a phobia. So you have got a phobia of a dog. So even if a dog is moving, you will still be panicky sitting here. So in cognitive behavior modification, what we will do, first we will read about dog stories, we will talk to him about dog stories, then we will prepare a grading list, 1 to 10. Then slowly we increase. Next time we show him a movie where the dog is there and how other people are playing with the dog. Then we come down to a player where we are sitting and somebody accidentally a dog comes. And then we don't take his attention there, we'll be probably explaining. And then we bring him to a level where he touches the dog and plays with the dog. So these are the various methods by which we can do. So cognition for him and for us also, a counselor also has to become cognizant of what are the levels of defects and how they have come into his mind. And we plan the cognitive behavior therapy and do it, it will always be more helpful.
Continuing our focus on mental health, we now bring you an insightful conversation with psychologist Dr. Radha Chintala. As the pressures of modern life continue to rise, more and more people are seeking help to maintain their emotional and psychological well-being.
Dr. Radha Chintala will share her expert perspective on why mental health is a critical aspect of overall wellness.
How the psychologist is different from psychiatrist?
If I wanted to put it in my own words, psychologists, what they do is they have to go to the root cause, and taking the root cause, they work through the therapies on the cognitive levels, on the behavioral aspects, on the things that the person is having ups and downs, and all these things are taken care by a psychologist. But when it comes to a psychiatrist, they also work with emotions. They also work with certain techniques. But of course, it is related with medicine included in that. And very clearly, it is understandable to each and every person also that whenever we are taking a paracetamol also, there is a definite effect of that.
Yeah.
The same way, here also there will be an effect of that. Either the person is having drowsiness, sleeping, or probably, putting on weight when they are taking some medications on anxiety or panic or anything in that way. Certain people definitely need it, but what they need, the condition is extreme, then they need to go for that. When the person is like not at all controlling anything, too much of, they are getting attacks, panic attacks, and
anxiety.
Anxiety is to high extent even for small things, even 1 minute also they are not able to handle themselves. Yeah. That is a time that you approach a psychiatrist. Eventually, at the same time, approach a psychologist together. Psychiatrist gives you medicine to calm you down immediately. Now, when it comes to a psychologist, they do therapies, and they use certain techniques. They take certain measurements, certain instruments to measure mindset and understand that, okay, this is what is the issue, this is what is the trauma that happened from the past. It is not from now. It is something related from the past. Clearing on that, definitely we need a psychologist.
Our journey through the wonders of science now leads us back to nature. In this segment, we focus on the urgent need of wildlife conservation. India is blessed with rich biodiversity, but many of our species are under threat due to habitat loss and human activities.
To discuss conservation efforts in one of India's most treasured ecosystem, the Western Ghats, we are joined by two passionate conservationists, Dr. D.V. Girish and Sri Sridev Hulikere. They'll talk about why saving our natural heritage is crucial for our future. Let's hear from these dedicated guardians of nature.
For me, being born and brought up in this landscape, we live in Chikmangla, which is in part of the Western Ghats, and we're right next to the Bhadra Tiger Reserve. In fact, we are abutting it. We've born here, living here, been visiting these areas. It's ingrained in us in the sense that, we have our ancestors teaching us how we need to live with the environment. Things have changed of late, but just visiting the jungle, staying in the middle of a jungle, whether it's coffee estates or otherwise, trying to appreciate and understand and imbibe the qualities of the animals has helped me take this forward.
That is wonderful. And how do you think we can balance human development with wildlife conservation?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we realize wildlife resource is not an unlimited resource where we have plenty and more. What we have reduced it to is, we have less than 20% of the land under green cover and less than 3 to 4% is our protected areas. So it's very important to realize that we have a huge population, at least in India, and we need to really save this little patch of what we have, natural forest. So it's very important because we're completely dependent on that. If you look at India as a whole, two very important things that makes life possible on this earth is air and water. If you look at Western Ghats and the northern Himalayas, all our water resources, irrespective of where you live, it's all sourced from the forest. So that's the most important thing. Of course, air, we are completely dependent. Without oxygen, you cannot live for more than a minute. So it's in our interest to protect both of these. So we have to save whatever is existing. Forget growing, making it big and increasing the percentage, all that is secondary, but it's very important for us to save whatever is left. So that's still good enough for the life on this planet and the life where we are. So I think it's very important to have this balance. So, in my opinion, the first important thing is to save whatever we have, keep it intact, ensuring that it doesn't get damaged. And also, in some places you can do intensive development in, let's say, big cities or where human-dominated landscapes are present. Then some areas, a very no-go area where you can really keep the forest intact. I think that's where we have to find a balance. I don't think so there will be a natural balance, because we are offsetting all those natural balances.
Yeah.
So in order to keep this going, it is important that humanity comes together, realizes that it's not just one or two people realizing it, it's the community, it is the state, it is everybody, the whole world that should realize and find this balance.
True. So we are creating awareness with a lot of activities that you are doing in your specific area as well. So as you speak about protection and save and all that, what are the pressing threats to the global biodiversity?
Yeah, I think it's very important that education is the key. We always think that education, economical growth, and various things contribute to this, but it doesn't seem to be working that way unless you make a very proactively focused education effort. So it's very important, as we do this education at every level, whether it is kids at a very young age, you catch them and then tell them about wildlife, nature, how important it is. Then at key positions of people, whether it is officials, whether it is politicians, whether it is religious leaders, everybody is everywhere, even common people. There are people who learn by default. Then there are people who are blessed with so much, natural wealth that they don't have to bother. Then there are people who have even very little access to even water. So all these are the stakeholders in some way, and it's very important to educate it in all the ways, in focusing on everybody and covering all the strata of society. Media, especially, including Akashvani, because that's the easiest and most accessible media everywhere. I think the awareness, I remember when we were kids, we used to listen to radio. We didn't have TV, and we were listening to stories, and we used to talk about nature and so on. So that's a tremendous contribution, and I think, if you just look at it, how many people listen to cricket commentary in the olden days? Everybody used to have a radio, versus today people sitting on in front of TVs and watching it. So I think the whole imagination used to be on words.
Looking at hundreds and hundreds of migratory birds, they navigate their journey, and how do climate change and habitat destruction impact these birds and their population?
Migratory birds, it's a very, very, very important aspect of nature. And there are many aspects to it. One is why do they migrate and how they migrate and so on. Annual migration. All of us look forward to the winter migration of birds and various animals and so on. So this is a very fascinating world. Because of climate change now, the migration has becoming shorter. And the numbers, it's not just big birds that you see in water bodies and so on. It is also the smaller forest birds which are local migratory. There is altitudinal migration, birds which go from higher elevation to lower elevation in winter, birds that come from middle of India to south. There are birds which come from north. So this is a big process, which is very important. See, they are not exploiting the land. They are depending in such a way that it is all, for example, some seeds may be dispersed from one area to another because of birds. So migration, if it stops, a lot of things can go wrong. So how do you ensure that is the big question that we need to, and also, all the resting places are going, we are developing everywhere. So the forest, for a simple example, we used to get a lot of eagles from the Himalayas down south. Now, every hill that they would probably stop for their rest. One is because of the fragmentation of lands, forests and so on. Second is because of the climate change is becoming an issue which we are not realizing. And I think the really sector that will get hit is farming and the population.
Now, we venture beyond our planet into the vastness of space. As we celebrate World Space Week, we are reminded of how far humanity has come into exploring the cosmos. Space science continues to push the boundaries of knowledge, fueling innovation and inspiring generations.
In this special segment, we have the honor of speaking with Dr. Vinod Kumar, Director of Promotion at InSpace, ISRO. He'll provide us with fascinating insights into the latest developments in space exploration, the importance of World Space Week, and how India is contributing to the global space community.
Space is a deep pocket and deep tech area. In deep tech, I will say that we have technology. We are second to none. We have a very good technology developed by ISRO over the years. Now, when there is some technology, advanced technology, some countries already have. So we collaborate with them. We collaborate with private companies. We have carried out a international strategy for making India as a global manufacturing hub. India is known for developing very high quality product at a low cost. So we are receiving requests from foreign countries to have meeting with us. So what we do, we conduct the space days with that country. We have conducted over a half a dozen space days with various countries, notable being India-Italy Space Day, India-Japan Space Day, India-Luxembourg Space Day, India-Singapore Space Day. So like this, we have made over hundreds of connections with the company to company. So that is proving very fruitful for the company's collaboration because space is the prominence of humanity. It doesn't recognize any boundary. So when you are working in space, you consider Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one.
How does InSpace promote India's role in global space governance?
Yeah, global space governance is through Office of Outer Space, like India has signed Artemis Accord. So those are the various sectors. But we follow all the international treaties, conventions and agreements. Being a responsible nation, Government of India has adopted the zero debris policy. So we are first nation in the world who has come out with this policy. Means any object which we are sending to space, we will bring it back. So we will not crowd in the space unnecessary. It's a very responsible way.
Yes.
So these are the certain things, liability conventions, insurance, all these things we follow religiously.
How will InSpace ensure sustainability in India's space program?
For sustainability at Earth as well as in orbit, there are the two things.
Yes.
So if you go for sustainability at Earth, we need to commercialize the space activities. That is the purpose with which InSpace is formed. So who can do this? It is the private companies. They can scale up the technologies developed by ISRO already. So for that purpose, we have 250 plus startups already within a span of 3-4 years. We have 550 plus proposals under various domains of space activities. So we are seeing that space ecosystem is working. Now, usage of space should increase in India for sustainability of the space. So people are using for navigation. They should be using our homegrown Navik, which is used by Map My India. So like this, you see, communication system, we don't depend on anyone. We should increase our sphere of activity so that it has the common man.
With that, we come to the close of this edition of Radioscope. We hope you enjoyed this journey through the world of wildlife, mental health and space exploration, learning how science continues to impact and improve our lives.
This program was scripted and produced by Srimati Seema Kumari, Program Executive, and is a contribution of Akashvani Hyderabad.